Hey all, here at OS Reviews. You're watching our unboxing and first impressions look at the Samsung Galaxy A10e. Now the A series from Samsung has always been its value-oriented line, and it's been mostly pushed by competition from Chinese brands in recent years, namely Xiaomi with the Redmi series and also Huawei's Honor series. And in response, Samsung has created the A series that is becoming also very competitive in terms of the design and giving you really good value for the money. It has the exact same processor as the unlocked international version, which is the Samsung Exynos 7884 chipset, clocked at 1.6 GHz. It's an octa-core chip. It sits between the Snapdragon 636 and the 660 in terms of performance. So we are talking about a pretty good mid-tier processor that should handle gaming, even PUBG at medium settings, really without any problems. It's going to be more powerful than even a Snapdragon 625 that was very popular just a year or two ago. The A10 also has what Samsung is calling an infinity teardrop or U-shaped notch design that makes the bezels seem very slim. It's a design language also employed on much more expensive phones. It's already a really good value, but during this holiday shopping season, namely throughout Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and even continuing, this can be picked up for as low as $49, again under 50 bucks, without any type of contract at all. It seems like a value that really can't be beat if you're looking for an ultra budget smartphone. Other specifications, it is running on Android 9.0 Pie, so it supports gestures. Furthermore, it even has Bluetooth 5.0, which is really impressive because there's still tons of mid-end phones which sell for $200, $300, which are still using Bluetooth 4.2. There's 32 gigs of built-in storage, an 8 megapixel rear-facing camera, 5 megapixel selfie cam, and it also uses a Type-C port for charging. Now the screen resolution, by the way, is 720p, so HD quality. For a, again, budget phone, it's nothing to complain about. There are still plenty of other phones at the same price that only give us 480p. Furthermore, at 5.8 inches, it's going to be a little bit smaller than some of the other phones these days, which have a 6-inch screen or a 6.2-inch screen, so it means that the pixels per inch are still going to be relatively good. In the box, we have access to the aforementioned reversible USB Type-C cable for charging and syncing. There's also a wall plug branded from Samsung that you can use to top it up. Here's a SIM ejector tool. And finally, you have some very quick user manual info from Samsung. So taking a closer look at the design, let's see if there's any power and try booting it up for the first time. Small kind of bezel at the very base, but that's pretty much it. And pretty quick in terms of the first boot. The phone itself is constructed out of polycarbonate plastic, but kind of brings you back to the days where Samsung's phones were all made out of plastic compared to recently where there's a bigger push towards premium material. Still, the phone feels extremely solid and it has that hyper glaze finish, which makes it look a bit shiny and reflective on the rear. This is a unibody phone, by the way, so the back cover is not user removable, so you aren't able to, say, switch out the battery, but as a whole, it makes the phone feel extremely sturdy and solid. On the rear here, we have the aforementioned single 8 megapixel autofocus camera and the LED flash. The phone is completely flush, so there's no camera bump on the rear. It stays completely flat when you lay it on a surface or a desk, which is very good. On the rear of the phone, we have access to the volume rocker and the power key, which are both very tactile and responsive. On the base here, we have the aforementioned USB Type-C port, which is great to see. A standard 3.5mm headphone jack, always nice, even though it has built-in Bluetooth 5.0 that you can use for wireless headphones. And there's also the loudspeaker. And then on the left-hand edge, we have access to the SIM card / microSD expansion card slot. You can expand the built-in memory up to 512 gigabytes. As another size comparison, here it is next to the Samsung Galaxy S8, which also has a 5.7, 5.8 inch display, but the screen-to-body ratio is actually going to be higher than the A10e, which is crazy just to think about how a flagship phone versus kind of a super entry-level phone now 2 years later has an even cleaner design. We've entered our Google account. Now we can sign into a Samsung account or create one just to access some other services like Bixby. So the phone right now is trying to go through and install some apps. Otherwise, the battery capacity is rated at 3,000 milliamp hours. So not the largest in the world. This is still a relatively compact and lightweight phone. On first impressions, the screen quality really is quite good. It's still plenty sharp and very vibrant for a IPS display with very generous and wide viewing angles, as you can see there even as we tilt it. Perhaps the blacks are not quite as inky or dark as AMOLED, But really, it's already a very impressive looking display panel and has slightly curved 2.5D edges, which tapers off at the edges, just making swiping feel a bit smoother as well. So it's a top quality display. Typing also feels really smooth and responsive thanks to the fact that the screen itself is just really slick and offers support for 10 fingers in terms of multi-touch. In terms of included applications, there are a handful of bloatware apps from TrackPhone, but most of them can be uninstalled. We have all the Google apps pre-installed by default as well, including YouTube, Photos, access to Gmail, all of those built right on in. Of course, One UI is still not really stock Android, but it has been getting better and better over the past few generations, giving us a pretty clean overall aesthetic these days. There's still a handful of Samsung apps, which you won't find with stock Android, that can be seen as a little bit redundant, but at least it gives you lots of different options, which advanced users can still appreciate. Again, here are all the kind of TrackPhone specific apps that you can look at or uninstall if you don't want them, some Samsung specific apps, and then the rest are mostly going to be stock Android. Facebook is pre-installed. Some of the other settings that you can find include a night mode, which will actually invert the screen to make it kind of a dark theme. Of course, this would be even better on an AMOLED display, but it already looks quite good in terms of giving us some extra punch and contrast. We also have things like a flashlight, in addition to Dolby Atmos, which creates some stereo effects when you are listening to music using Bluetooth or headphones. The phone does have built-in GPS. It also has built-in 4G LTE, so connectivity is fully stacked for a budget phone. And we also have Smart View, which is similar to Miracast, allows you to project and wirelessly display the phone's screen onto a TV projector or monitor. Other applications on here include the ability to toggle on or off the navigation bar. So in fact, if we toggle it off from the settings, we see the presence of these virtual kind of gesture areas where we can swipe up from the center to go back home. We can long hold to access Google Assistant. We can also swipe from the edge over here to basically go back, and then from the left side here to open up multitasking. And again, main UI navigation, even right now as we're proceeding through setup for the first time, so lots of apps are being downloaded and installed, it's still being really smooth and responsive, which is quite impressive for the budget price. Still is remaining quite cool in terms of the temperature. So the chipset here, the 7884, is pretty energy efficient. Perhaps one of the only flaws from a hardware perspective is that the A10 does not come with a biometric fingerprint scanner, which is a little unfortunate. So it's not going to be as quick to unlock if you are relying on security. There is face unlock, which you can see kind of the notch here try to flash, but it's not super secure. But you can always resort to creating a password or a PIN to unlock it. But again, there is no fingerprint scanner. Again, same exact notification system as we saw on the Galaxy S8, S9, S10, so it should be very familiar if you've used any Samsung phones recently. Double-click on the volume key to launch into the camera, all feels quite familiar. Interface also is quite familiar as well. There's even the addition of a software 2x zoom, which is pretty convenient at a single click, but it is going to be a digital zoom as opposed to, say, optical. Alright, so the last thing to really take a look at, I think, would be into settings, just to quickly verify the version of Android that it's running on. One UI version 1.1, Android version 9, so indeed Android Pie. It doesn't seem like this phone will get, continuous software updates because, unfortunately, Samsung isn't super great at pushing consistent updates. In fact, that's true of most manufacturers, aside from Android 1 edition phones. But overall, we still get a pretty up-to-date experience that should more than suffice for the next year or two of usage. In terms of storage, out of the 32 gigabytes, 10.5 gigs is occupied by the system operating system and some of the pre-installed apps. So we still get over 20 gigs of available storage space. So that's more or less it as far as our unboxing and first impressions look at the Galaxy A10e. Indeed, for this ultra budget price, it seems like an extremely promising smartphone, pretty much unrivaled in terms of value. It makes it difficult, I think, for other even Chinese brands to compete with at this point. So a very promising phone if you're looking for a backup device, a travel phone, a device for kids or the elderly. This is a great option to consider. So be sure to check back for a full review coming out soon, which will go into greater depth of how it performs in terms of the camera and gaming. But for now, that's been our unboxing. Thanks for watching Kira OS Reviews. That's been the Galaxy A10e.